Chapter Chapter 2. A Meeting in the Rain. Slatebeard, the oldest dragon in the valley, had seen more than his memory could hold. His scales no longer glowed, but he could still breathe fire, and whenever the younger dragons were at a loss, they would come to ask his advice. Once all the other dragons had assembled outside Slatebeard's cave, Firedrake woke him. The sun had set. A black and starless sky lay over the valley, and it was still raining. When the old dragon emerged from his cave, he looked gloomingly up at the sky. His bones ached from the damp, and the cold weather made his joints stiff. The others respectfully made way for him. Slatebeard looked around. None of the dragons were missing, but Sorrel was the only brownie present. The old dragon moved through the wet grass, with heavy steps and dragging tail, towards a rock that rose in the valley like a giant's head covered with moss. Breathing hard, he climbed up on it and looked around. The other dragons gazed up at him like frightened children. Some of them were still very young and knew nothing but this valley. Others had come with Slatebeard himself from far, far away, and remembered that the world was not always belonging to humankind. They all smelled misfortune, and they hoped he would deal with it. But Slatebeard was old and tired now. "Come up here, rat," he said in a hoarse voice. "Tell us what you saw and heard." The rat scampered nimbly up the rock, climbed Slatebeard's tail, and crouched on his back. It was so quiet under the dark sky that only the sound of the rain falling and the rustle of foxes out hunting by night could be heard. Rat cleared her throat. "Humans are coming!" she cried. "They've woken the machines and fed them and sent them on their way. They're already eating a path through the mountains only 2 days' journey from here. The fairies will hold them at bay for a while, but they will get here sometime or other, because it's this valley of yours they're heading toward." A groan ran through the ranks of the dragons. They raised their heads and pressed closer around the rock where Slatebeard stood. Firedrake was a little ways away from the others, with Sorrel perched on his back, nibbling a dried mushroom. "Oh, terrific rat," she muttered. "Couldn't you have put it a little more tactfully?" "What does that mean?" one of the dragons called out. "Why would they come here? Surely they have all they want where they are." "Humans never have what they want," replied Rat. "Let's hide until they go away again," suggested another dragon, "the way we've always done when one of them loses his way and turns up here. They're so blind they only see what they expect to see. They'll think we're odd-looking rocks, same as usual, or dead trees." But the rat shook her head. "Look here!" she shrilled. "If I told you once, I told you 100 times. Those humans are making plans. But big animals don't listen to little animals, right?" She looked around them crossly. "You hide from human beings, but you aren't interested in what they're up to. Rats aren't stupid. We go into their houses. We eavesdrop on them. We know what they're planning for your valley." She cleared her throat again and stroked her gray whiskers. "Here she goes again, winding up the suspense," Sorrel whispered into Firedrake's ear, but the dragon ignored her. "What are they planning then, Rat?" asked Slatebeard wearily. "Come on, tell us." Rat fiddled nervously with a whisker. It was no fun bringing bad news. They're going to flood the valley," she replied, her voice faltering. "Soon there'll be nothing here but water. Your caves will be flooded, and none of the tall trees over there," she said, pointing one paw at the darkness. None of them will be left. Not even the treetops will show above the water." The dragons stared at her speechless. "But that's impossible!" one of them exclaimed at last. "No one can do a thing like that, not even us, and we're bigger and stronger than you are." "Impossible?" she laughed sarcastically. "Bigger, Stronger? You don't get it at all. You tell them, Sorrel. Tell them what human beings are like. Maybe they'll believe you. With an injured expression, she wrinkled her sharp nose. The dragons turned to Firedrake and Sorrel. Rot's right, said the brownie. You've no idea. She spat on the ground and picked up a piece of moss stuck between her teeth. Human beings don't go around in suits of armor these days, like they used to when they haunted you dragons, but they're still dangerous, more dangerous than anything else in the world. Oh, nonsense, said a large, stout dragon scornfully, and turned his back on Sorrel. Let the two legs come. Rats and brownies may have a right to fear them, but we are dragons. What can they do to us? What can they do to you? Sorrel threw her nibbled mushroom away and sat up very straight. She was angry now, and an angry brownie was not to be trifled with. You've never set foot outside this valley, dimwit, she said. I expect you to think human beings sleep on leaves like you. I expect you to think they do no more than harm a fly because they don't live much longer than one. I expect you to think they've got nothing in their heads but thoughts of eating and sleeping. But they aren't like that. Oh no, not these days. Sorrel was practically gasping for air. Those things that sometimes fly across the sky, being so stupid, you call them noisy birds. Those things are machines built by humans for traveling through the air, and human beings can talk to one another when they aren't even in the same country. When they can conjure up moving, talking pictures, and they have cups made of ice that never melts, and their houses shine at night as if they trap the sunlight, and... Sorrel shook her head. And they can do wonderful things. Terrible things, too. If they want to flood this valley with water, then they will. If they want, you'll have to leave whether you like it or not. The dragon stared at her, even the one who had just turned his back. Some of them looked up at the mountains as if they expected machines to come crawling over the black peaks at any moment. Oh, drat it! Muttered Sorrel. Now he's gone and made me so cross I threw my delicious mushroom away. It was an oyster mushroom, too. You don't find those around here so often. As in a thoroughly bad mood, she scrambled off Firedrake's back and started searching the wet grass for her tibbet. You heard, all of you, said Sleepbeard. We have to leave. Uncertainly, their legs heavy with fear, the dragons turned to him again. For some of you, the old dragon continued, it will be the first time. But many of us have had to flee from human beings before. Although now it will be extremely difficult to find a place that doesn't belong to them. Sleepbeard shook his head sadly. It seems to me that there are more and more humans with every new moon. Yes, they're all over the place, said the dragon who had been mocking Sorrel a moment ago. It's only when I fly over the sea that I don't see their lights beneath me. Then we must try living in harmony with them, suggested another dragon. But Sleepbeard shook his head. No, he said. No one can live in harmony with human beings. Oh, yes they can, Rat stroked her wet coat. Dogs and cats do. Mice and birds, even us rats. But you, she said, letting her gaze roam over the dragons, you're too big, too clever, and, she added, shrugging her shoulders, too different. You'd frighten them. And when something frightens human beings, they destroy it, the old dragon said wearily. They almost wiped us out once before, many, many 100 years ago. He raised his heavy head and looked at the younger dragons one by one. I'd hoped they would at least leave us this valley. It was a foolish hope. But where would we go? Cried one of the dragons in despair. This is our home! Sleepbeard did not reply. He looked up at the night sky where the stars were still hidden behind clouds, and sighed. And he said huskily, Go back to the rim of heaven. We have to stop running away sometime. I'm too old. I shall crawl into my cave and hide. But you younger ones can make it. The young dragons looked at him in surprise. The rest of them, however, raised their heads and looked eastward, their eyes full of longing. The rim of heaven. Sleipnir closed his eyes. Its mountains are so tall that they touch the sky. Moonstone caves lie hidden among its slopes, and the floor of the valley in the middle of the mountains is covered with blue flowers. When you were children, we told you stories about the rim of heaven. You may have thought they were fairy tales, but some of us have actually been there. He opened his eyes again. I was born there so long ago that eternities lie beneath that memory in me. I was younger than most of you are now when I flew away. Tempted by the wide sky, I flew eastward on and on. I have never dared to fly in the sunlight once. I had to hide from humans who thought I was a bird of the devil. I tried to go back to the rim, but I could never find the way. The old dragon looked at his young companions. Seek the rim of heaven. Go back to the security of its peaks, and then perhaps you will never have to flee from humans again. They aren't here yet, he said, nodding toward the dark mountain tops around the valley. But they will come soon. I have felt it for a long time. Don't linger. Fly! Fly away! All was perfectly still again. Drizzling rain as fine as dust fell from the sky. Sorrel hunched her head between her shoulders, her shivering. Oh, thanks a million, she whispered to Firedrake. The rim of heaven, eh? Sounds too good to be true. If you ask me, the old boy dreamt it up. Firedrake did not reply, but looked up at Slatebeard thoughtfully. Then he suddenly stepped forward. Hi, whispered Sorrel in alarm. What's the idea? Don't do anything silly. But Firedrake took no notice. You're right, Slatebeard, he said. In any case, I am tired of living in hiding, never flying outside this valley. He turned to the others. Let us look for the rim of heaven. Come on. Let's set out today. The moon is waxing. There will be no better night for us. The others shuddered as if he had taken leave of his senses. But Slatebeard smiled for the first time that night. You're still rather young, Firedrake, he pointed out. I'm old enough, replied Firedrake, raising his head a little higher. He was not much smaller than the old dragon, but his horns were shorter and his scales shone in the moonlight. Hey, here, hang on! Wait a mo! Sora scrambled hastily up Firedrake's neck. What's all this nonsense? You may have flown beyond these hills all of 10 times, but, she said, spreading out her arms and pointing to the mountains around them, you've no idea what lies further off. You can't just fly away through the human world looking for a place that may not even exist. Be quiet, Sorrel, said Firedrake crossly. Won't, spat the brownie girl. See the others? Do they look as if they want to fly away? No, don't, so forget it. If human beings really come here, I'm sure we can find us a nice new cave. Yes, listen to her, said one of the other dragons, moving closer to Firedrake. There's no other such place as the Rim of Heaven except in Slatebeard's dreams. The world belongs to the humans. If we hide here, they may leave us in peace. And if they really do come to our valley, well, we'll just have to chase them away. At this, Rat laughed. Her laughter was shrill and loud. Ever tried turning back the tide? She asked, but the dragon who had spoke did not answer her. Come on, he told the others, and he turned and went back through the pouring rain to his cave. They followed him out one by one, until only Firedrake and the old dragon were left. Slatebeard, his legs stiff, climbed down from the rock and looked at Firedrake. I can see why they think the Rim of Heaven is only a dream, he said. There are many a day when it seems like a dream to me, too. Firedrake shook